Hello, everyone. Now that we've gone through a little bit of what Visual Studio is all about, let's go in and actually write our first program. And as I said before, our goal here is to show you how to write our first program, have you try it, make sure you can save things, do everything that we're doing here. It's very important that you follow these steps and get used to these steps. Hopefully, in another week or so, this is old hat, this initial stuff here, as we'll be progressing quite quickly. But we need to make sure you can do some of the basics before we can go to the next steps. Okay? So once again, we're back to Visual Studio 2019. Like I said, based upon when you're listening to this video, it might be a little bit different, or based upon what version, but hopefully everything looks relatively the same. I cannot control Microsoft. I know that. And I know every once in a while we're going to have to update these videos, but hopefully they're still relevant as you read this, okay, or listen to this. Once again, we're going to go back here. We're going to create a new project. Everything we do is we create a new project. If you actually followed me in the last video in regards to doing Visual Studio, you should find the most recent template up sitting up here. Once again, if you did not, we want you to find Visual Basic, and then down here, find the template, Windows Form .NET Framework. Make sure that that .NET Framework is there. Like I said, in some instances, I've seen where Windows Forms apps is there without it. You don't want that one. You're going to run into some issues if you pick that one. It may work for the most part, but you'll run into a few issues. So, but the .NET Framework one is the one you actually want, okay? And so pick that one. So if you've already done it before, you don't have to go choose it anymore. Just go ahead up here to this template, highlight that, and hit next. All right? Once again, we want to make sure you name things correctly. You're always going to name it your assignment underscore initials. For this particular situation, I'll go ahead and name this one. I'll go ahead and name this one. Let's see, what we're going to do. We'll do this. We'll do week 2 example, just like that, okay? And that's what we're doing. We're doing the example for week 2, okay? Basically, make sure you're putting this in the right place. Once again, if you don't like where the default is, or you want to put it somewhere else, make sure you change it by hitting the ellipse button here and pointing to where you want to save it. You want to be able to find this. It's very important that you can find it. There's a couple different ways if you forget where it's at to go find it, but for the most part, the easiest way is to put it in a place and you know where it is. Maybe create a folder for this class and always stick it in there. Maybe clear a folder in this class in your documents and stick it in there or something like that. Sort of what I did in this case, okay? I put it in Visual Studio examples, okay? Make sense? Good, good, good. Everything else here should be perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and hit create. Takes a few seconds here. At least on my computer, it's taking a few seconds. All right, and there you go. We're now back into Visual Studios, okay? In this case, everything popped up exactly what I want. I need my toolbox here. I need my Solutions Explorer here, if I can get it out, and my Properties box here. And cool enough, it automatically put my form there. Like I said, the form's not there. Double click on the form. All right, so make sure your environment is set up the way it needs to be set up. Everybody good? I always ask these questions on videos, like I'm going to get an answer. I don't care. But hopefully you're out there saying, yeah, I'm good, I'm good. All right. If you are, that's great. If you're not, I guess contact me or contact your instructor. So in this case here, we're now in this environment. Now, we're going to write a program. Once again, we talked about Visual Basic already and what it is. Visual Basic is the ability for the programmer to interact with a form, basically an interface, a GUI, a graphical user interface, a GUI, GUI. GUI, graphical user interface, is the abbreviation. And us technical people, instead of saying GUI, we say it really quick and say GUI. On a test, if I asked you what this is, don't spell GUI GOOEY. I've gotten that a lot. Okay, it's GUI GUI, graphical user interface. That's what this is going to be. we're going to create an interface that our users, the people we're actually programming this for, will be able to access, okay? And so, or not access, basically interface with the program with, meaning enter data and then press something to actually make it work. So what we're going to do is do the famous that you see in most beginning programming classes, hello world. And so let's go ahead and start looking at how we're going to do this, okay? Um, so in this case here, you have your toolbox. Based upon what you see here, your toolbox should be set up and looking like this. All right. I'm not sure how yours looks right now, but really what we want to do is extend. Okay. And I do this by doing a left click, extending the Windows forms. Okay. Well, I'm going to say, take that back. You're going to extend the common controls. Windows forms is good too, but common controls are it's a little bit more abbreviated list, and it's basically the most common controls we would use on a form, okay? In these first couple videos, I'm also going to introduce you to a couple of terms we got to deal with. I highly recommend you write them down. Yes, I know you're in college and taking notes is something that people hate doing, but I would recommend you write these down and make sure you understand them. These are called controls, okay? Everything on here is a control. We're going to put these controls onto our form. In some books or some references, you may look at those, people might talk about those controls as objects. If they do, make sure you understand at this point in time, it is a control. You got that? And so a control is basically what we're going to stick onto our form in this case, to allow our user to interface with our program. So what do I mean by that? Well, a common control that we always see is a button. And I can put this button right on our form. So a couple things I did here. I took the button, dragged it over, put it on our form. And as you see, it's highlighted with these little, white boxes, for lack of a better term. I can grab them and make my button as big or as small as I want. All right. If you don't want the button on there, you did it by mistake, highlight it and hit delete, and it's gone. Another way of getting a button on there, double click the control and the button will show up on the form also. I can move that thing around, put it anywhere I want to put it. You see how that all works? Grab it and move it around. You can put it anywhere you want on the form. We'll talk about these forms. I like to have these forms nice and neat, everything lined up, everything looking good. We want to do this professionally, not for yourself, but for somebody actually using it, who's actually paying you to write this program. So we might as well get started the right way. So we don't need a form that looks like this. It's this big and we only have one button on it. That looks silly. We want things actually lined up very nice. You want to size your form. That's the form right here. See how that's highlighted? Go back and forth. All right? Again, this week is all about playing. Go out and play. You can't do anything. You're not going to blow up the computer, okay? And I'm not going to scream at you if you don't get everything working the first time. And so with that said, make sure you take the time to actually, do this and play with it and get used to it. That's what we're doing this week. All right? I'm going to take this button off. I highlight it. I did a little bit one left click and I highlighted it. And I'm going to hit delete, my delete button on my keyboard, and it's gone, okay? I'm going to put my button right here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a label onto our form, all right? And so as you saw there, I went to the label. We use labels in this class for output. All your output, meaning what you want, what the user is going to see after they press the button, okay, should go back to a label. Does that make sense? It should go back to a label, all right? And so that's what we're going to do in this case here. I'm going to put this label on here. All right. So a couple of things now. Now we have a few controls onto our form. Nothing overly pretty yet, and there's nothing that works yet, but basically we have that. We actually have three controls. The first one being the form. That's a control in itself. The button, I need to highlight that, and then the label right there. Now what we're going to do is we have to customize these controls for the purposes of our program, okay? The first thing we'll do is the form. What you'll see here, I'm going to go ahead and pin the solutions over here. This is where we get into the properties. Once again, something I want you to write down. Properties are the characteristics of the controls. Characteristics means the options of a car or whatever. A lot of them have defaults to them. Matter of fact, all of them have a default to them, and some of them we're going to change, okay? Over time, you'll learn to change them more and more and more in different ones, and you'll play with these to actually learn what they actually do. But primarily, right now, what we want to get onto is that there's certain ones you always want to change every time you put a control onto a form. Okay? So right now, we're looking at the form itself. These properties can be displayed in a couple different ways. One, by categorize, that's how it is right now, or the other one is alphabetical. My personal preference is alphabetical, so I press this little button right here, and you'll see that it's alphabetical, okay? You'll start with the name, which is very important to us, and then everything else is alphabetical. For me, it's easier to find those as you go through it. You can toggle back and forth. Makes no difference to me between alphabetical and categorized until you get used to all this. This is the name of the form. We're going to keep it as Form 1 right now. Later on in this course, we'll change that name around when we get to multiple forms, but that's not for a while yet. But one of the things we want to do is the text property. This text property right here, text, no dot, text, is one of the most important properties that you'll deal with. Every control utilizes the text properties. It holds the value of the actual control. In this case, what we want to do is we want to change this to give it a meaningful, I would say, I don't know what the term of this would be. You see how it says Form 1 up here? I hate that, okay? That tells the user nothing. Tell what this thing is going to do right there, okay? And in this case, we're going to say it's the Hello World application. Does that make sense? I probably need a real fancy name for that top piece there. So I don't know what that would call it. You guys probably screaming out a name. But whatever this is up here, I'm losing my vocabulary this morning. We basically want to change that to basically state what the form is being used for. And so we're going to be doing a Hello World. You see this a lot in Microsoft. You'll see those things on the top of the forms where it actually tells you what it is and what it's going to be doing. Form 1 does not do that. Form 2 does not do that. Change this every time you put a form onto the control. Make sense? Whew, okay. There's a lot here. Feel free when you're looking at these videos, okay, this one I'm going to have a part 2 to this also, to go back and forth, take the little scroll piece on the video and go back and make sure you get this, okay? Probably my recommendation is let's walk through this together the first time through, and then you go through it and you actually do it as you're listening to make sure you're getting this, okay? With that said, we still have our other controls on there. We have our button. Now we have two things we want to change on our button. Number one, the name. In programming, we want to make sure, outside of that Form 1, every control we put on there, we will name. Almost, I will say. I'll tell you the ones we won't do. But for the most part, everything that we want to put on our control, on our form, should be named. And we want to name it professionally so we can tell, so you can be able to reference it very quickly. And also the person who may be picking up this program later on to maintain it. Obviously, you're not going to be doing this in your schoolwork, but in the real world, that's how it works. You write a program, and sometimes you hand it off. With that said, you need to be able to name these things so it's easy to recognize. Naming in programming is called a naming convention. Okay, there's several different naming conventions, and based upon the place you work, they may have their own. Here at Cincinnati State, we're going to use Hungarian notation. There's some people who hate Hungarian notation. I don't know why. To me, it's just a naming convention. It makes no difference to me. The reason we have a naming convention is for consistency of all our programs. Again, we're teaching you how to program, not for you, but for you to go work at a company in which there may be several programmers all working. We want to have a consistent look and feel about our programs. It's very important, okay? So Hungarian notation is a prefix to every name, okay, that states what the object, in this case, controls are, okay? In this case, BTN represents button. If you go to week 1, there is a Hungarian notation cheat sheet sitting there that will actually show you all the prefixes for the controls in which we will actually utilize this semester, all right? And every time we introduce a new one, I will tell you what it is. So we'll put BTN, and then the first letter should be a capital letter, and we'll set this is going to be a submit button. Make sense? All right. Then what we'll do is go down to the text property and change the text property. And this is going to be, see how it says button 1 right there? We don't want it to say button 1. We want it to say submit. Okay. Again, we're painting a canvas in a way. We're painting this GUI for our user to be able to use it. Everybody make sense so far? Okay, good. The last thing we want to do is the same thing with the label. We'll go up and we'll name the label. In this case, the Hungarian notation for label is LBL. All lowercase, always should be lowercase. And then what we'll do is give it, what is this label for? This is going to be for our message. And we'll call it message, LBL message. Does that make sense? We'll come back down here to the text. And a couple of things I like doing with my output text. Let me kind of follow through there. You're going to name it, and then you're going to go to this auto size. See auto size right here? Trust me on this. You're going to make this auto size false. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hit the border style, and you're going to make that fixed 3D. Okay? And then we will come down here. I'm giggling a little bit because yes, I'm sitting outside doing these videos because it's one of the only places I can get away from everybody to do these. And yes, you are probably hearing planes fly over. All of a sudden, I guess I got planes. I don't know. Hopefully they'll stop here in a second. So we'll go to the label right here. And what I like to do is delete that because I don't want it to have anything in there. Let's go click on this again. I'm going to make this bigger. See how I can make this bigger? And then I will try to eyeball a little bit and make it nice and centered. And so everything looks nice and neat. So that's how your label should look. So in this case here, your name, we changed the auto size to false and border style to fixed 3D. I went down to my text and I actually deleted this out of the label. Okay? What do you think? So you now created, or at least I created, okay, or we created, we should say, let's all be in this together, our very first interface. Doesn't do anything. So this is how you start a program, okay? So once you actually get the program to the point where you want to test it out, we click this little start button. And in a second, it's going to build. Excuse me, it's going to build, and then boom, there's our program. Look at this. And if I press submit, 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 it doesn't do anything because we haven't told it to do anything yet. Okay? To end the program, you can either hit the little red button right here that says stop debugging, or you can click the X and it'll actually go away and get back to where we were before. The output might be sitting down there. If it is, just hit the X button, get that out of there, and you should be good to go. What do you think? So this was our first time of writing a program, okay? And the first thing we got to do when we write a program in Visual Studio, Visual Basic in this case, is we got to create our interface. What we're going to do now is write the program behind it. And we'll do that in part 2 of this particular video, or this particular series of videos, I should say. So I'll see you in part 2.